In this video, I'm going to be removing the stock 2024 KTM Starter Kill Switch and replacing it with the old style Starter Kill switches and wiring them to the new style waterproof connector. This is actually the third switch that's been on my bike. The first two were replaced under recalls. The third switch has been okay. The starter button still works fine. The kill switch stopped working. So rather than replace it with a new switch the same, I've decided to go old school and replace old style separate start and kill switches. Here you can see the parts I'm going to be using. The switches are KTM OEM. I'll put the part numbers of everything in the description of the video in case you want to build the same thing. The red button switch is the kill switch and the grey one is the starter switch. And I'm not going to be using the original connectors. I'm going to be wiring them into the new style KTM 2024 waterproof GST switch. So I have a switch housing and connectors. You could choose to use the stock switch housing, take it off the multi-switch and reuse that. I'm just going to use a new one and leave the stock switch as is as a backup spare in case I need to use that. So first step is to remove the stock switch, which you can see here. You can see the GST waterproof connector with 4 wires. And to figure out the wiring of the 4-way connector, I looked up the circuit diagram in the KTM repair manual. So the 2 brown wires are both connected to ground, and then the red and blue wire are connected to the starter relay, and a white and grey wire is connected to the ECU and is for the kill switch. Okay, so I checked the wiring length on both the starter switch and the kill switch. They're plenty long enough. I won't have any issues, don't need to extend the length. My plan is just to cut off the connectors they come with, attach the terminals that I purchased, part number in the description, and plug them into the new GST waterproof connector. And this is the old style connector that was used on TBI bikes and carb bikes as well. They work okay, but they have one big problem: they're not waterproof. So water can get in here and corrode the terminals. So if you have a bike with one of these fitted, really good idea before it does start corroding to fill it with silicone grease or dielectric grease, and that will help prevent corrosion. I'm going to not use this, use the new style waterproof connector. I'll still use a little bit of silicone grease on the terminals, but I think this is a much better design. So that's why I'm keen to fit one of these. And to install the GST Crimp terminals, I'm going to be using this Crimp tool made by IWISS. The model number is SN-2549. The dies it comes with 4 different sizes. For these terminals, I'm going to be using the second largest die. And the die crimps both the wire and the insulator parts of the crimp at the same time. So really easy to use. I'll show the quality of the crimp after I've used it. If you don't want to use this tool, which works really well, there is a cheaper tool. I have this one made by Engineer. Part number is PA21. This does not have the die that crimp both parts at the same time. So for the insulator, you'd use the 2.2 size, and for the connector wire, you'd use 1.9, so you need to use it twice on each. Crimp still works well though. And here you can see I've crimped one terminal on. I'll show a close-up of the crimp quality. To install the crimp, you need to strip off about 2 to 3 millimeters of insulation and then crimp on the terminal. Okay, so I've installed my 4 terminals on the wires. Next, I'm ready to install these into the connector. The connector comes assembled with the end cap and the waterproof boot, so you need to remove that to put the terminals inside the connector. The end cap just comes off You can prise it off with a blade carefully, and once that is off, you can remove the waterproof boot, just like that. Okay, so this is the kill switch. I've installed the kill switch terminals into the connector. With the connector in this orientation, the kill switch wires go on the left, just like the original. So the kill switch is the white and grey and the brown. For the new switch, it doesn't really matter which wire is which. I've connected the black and white to the ground, and the black will be the wire that goes via the connector to the ECU. Also, be sure to install your waterproof boot and the end cap. And note that these are not symmetrical, so you need to get them the right way around, or they will not fit into the end of the connector. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the starter switch terminals in the same way. And the way these terminals install is they do have up and down, so might be a little bit difficult to see, but there's a tang on the bottom. With the terminal or the connector block in this orientation, the tang goes down, and then you slide the connector in. They're quite difficult to get in. There's a lock, so you need to push it past. I used a small pick tool to push it down. I also applied a little bit of silicone grease, and you also want to make sure that after you've crimped, nothing is sticking out, or that will make it very difficult to push into the connector block. Okay, so this is the completed new connector. I've got the starter switch wires, the orange one on top, note the connector orientation, and the black one on the bottom is black and white rather, and then the kill switch is on the left hand side. And I've added a couple of zip ties as strain relief, so that if one of the switch wires gets pulled, it doesn't pull on this area of the connector. And I've used this style of switches for a long time. I've found them to be reliable in general. However, one issue can be that water gets inside the switch. I don't think it gets in from the front, I think it gets in from behind, and then if it does get in, it can corrode the terminal inside. So one tip I have is to disassemble the switch and put some silicone grease on the terminal. So that's what I'm going to do on both of the switches before I install them. And to take apart the switch, it's pretty easy. You just press down on these tabs. There's one on each side, and then the internal part of the switch will come out. And note that there's a spring inside, which you can see there, so definitely don't lose that. The spring sits in this part here, and you can see the terminals, and there's a plate terminal as well, which gets pressed down to push against these terminals. Typically, if you do get water in, these will corrode. The plate can also corrode and then not make contact. You can see there is a little bit of grease already, but I'm going to apply some more silicone grease. And I've also applied some to the plate contact inside there. So I'll reassemble now. And I'll do the same to the kill switch. Okay, so that's the completed assembly, ready for installation on the bike. And here you can see I've mounted the new switches. I've got the start switch on the right, kill switch on the left. A couple of notes: I moved my map switch over to the right, it used to be over here. To fit it here, I've flipped it upside down so the wiring comes out the top. That gives me a lot more clearance between the back of the switch and the brake master. So if you want to do that, I recommend flipping it over. I've moved my light switch from here to here. That actually has a good benefit. It sits up against the clutch master, which will help stop it moving backwards and breaking the perch. So that's actually a pretty good change. Don't use my light switch very much, so it's fine being there. I want my kill switch close to my hand. I know some people prefer the switches the other way around. I'm very used to using my start switch on the right, so this is what I chose to do. If you want to do the same, I hope you find this video useful.